Hi, it's Kirby Sommers. Today is October 28th, 2025, and I'm going to go over some of the initial facts about Alan Dershowitz as it pertains to Virginia. So, within the last couple of days, very recently, after the publication of her book, it appears that a lot of people who were initially protesting that Virginia's photograph with Prince Andrew was not real have now come to their senses, or at least they, can stop pretending. And even those people have acknowledged that that indeed is Andrew, who has since been quite, let's say, ridiculed and put back into the spotlight. And so a lot of people have been asking me, what about Alan Dershowitz? So, what I want to do is I want to go over some of the initial things with an actual legal document. Okay. And so on the screen, I think we can see uh, JE with Alan Dershowitz, and he has his Harvard sweatshirt on. And by the way, the person who introduced JE to Harvard was, in fact, Leslie Wexner. And for those of you who are unaware, I've written extensively about Wexner. You can find, I believe, book one, which is called Merchant of Death, Leslie Wexner, on my website, kirbysummers.com. Now, about my books, and I know a lot of people are asking me information about my books. What I do is research. It's not regurgitated mainstream media information. I actually spend all of my time connecting dots and unearthing new information. That's called research. For research papers, scholarly papers, the kind that I write about on my Substack, which I keep there, and every now and then share on my Patreon, and certainly put into my books. That type of document costs anywhere from $100 to $5,000, and in for that type of work. And in some of the websites that offer that kind of work, none of whom have done the deep dives on JE, but have done deep dives on other areas. Sometimes that's just a look-see only. They don't even get a PDF. However, I have made the pricing comfortable for most people to be able to afford my work. I refuse to put it on Amazon because if I put it on Amazon, people will think it's an ordinary book. And my cut would be about $4, which I'm sorry, I'm not going to work every single day and put myself in harm's way, as you can imagine. Um, for $4, maybe. Okay. So my work, it's got receipts. It's available on my website, kirbysummers.com. And again, it is actual real research. Now, I want to see where I'm going to start. So, this is a lawsuit that I'm referencing a lawsuit that Alan Dershowitz brought against Brad Edwards and Paul Cassell. Now, those were the two initial attorneys that Virginia had when she was trying to share information about what she alleged happened with Dershowitz. Now, as a result of that, and I'll be sharing the name and the number of, the docket number for this lawsuit. What Dershowitz did was he sued Brad Edwards and Paul Cassell. And then he wrongly claimed in interviews, he's a well-known attorney. He has been for most of his life. And so he can get on mainstream at any time that he wants and We certainly know who runs mainstream. I don't have to tell you. And in mainstream, he basically said that they lied. And both Edwards and Cassell asserted that what they said were factual allegations that, quote, Dershowitz had knowledge of and participated in J.E.'s criminal conduct, and that these were founded, and that Dershowitz's statements about Edwards and Cassell were defamatory. So in April of 2016, I'm going to repeat that. In April of 2016, Dershowitz settled the Edwards and Cassell defamation claims against him. Now, I've got the portion of the legal document on the screen, and it says, and in time, and we'll get to it as to why the reason that the settlement remained confidential, so that as a condition of the settlement, Dershowitz required that the financial terms of the settlement be kept confidential. So I am going to perhaps keep putting up screen images for a lot of this stuff. However, I am going to start reading from the complaint. And again, we're going over this information, and because a lot of people just, what happened to Alan Dershowitz? Well, she blah blah blah, and referring to Virginia, and I just want to be very firm. And again, I think a lot of people are beginning to understand what Virginia, the almost impossible, which turned out to be fatal, regrettably, mountain that she had to climb. I don't think that Virginia realized the extent to which she or the other victims were placed in jeopardy, or the amount of pushback that they would be receiving. So basically, this is a lawsuit that arrived as a result of Alan Dershowitz himself stating that if you want to sue me, then sue me. So anyway, I'm going to start this. So during 2000 and 2008, beginning when plaintiff was 16, she was the victim of transportation and abuse by J.E. So J.E.'s transportation scheme involved recruiting girls, often by claiming they would get paid $200 for simply providing massage to a wealthy billionaire. The young girl would then be brought up to J.E.'s bedroom, where J.E. would be on a massage table. J.E. would then SA the girl, and the same pattern was repeated numerous times with numerous children. So from between 1999 to 2007, J.E. SA'd more than 30 minor girls in his mansion in Palm Beach, Florida, and elsewhere in the United States and overseas. In addition to his own SA of the victims, J.E. directed other persons to SA the girls. Epstein used paid employees to find and bring minor girls to him. He worked in concert with others to obtain minors, not only for himself, but over for the gratification, of others. And then one of the persons, and of course this is about Dershowitz himself, with whom J.E. acted in concert, was Dershowitz. And I'm going to see if I can pull up another one of the documents. Let's see, which one do I add? That one. No, that's going to be at the end. So let me just go here. That would be that. So I took these. So I'm going to read the screen images that I'm sharing with you, and you can see the case number and you can look for it yourself. So Dershowitz made his claims to discredit Roberts. She was then known as Robert before she was married, in concert with J.E. and others, including Ghislaine Maxwell, one of J.E.'s longtime procurers as part of a conspiracy to discredit and try to silence Robert. J.E. was particularly interested in discrediting and silencing Roberts because he feared a reopening of a federal criminal investigation of him. Dershowitz made his statements pursuant to his conspiracy with J.E. and Maxwell maliciously as part of an effort to conceal as transportation crimes committed around the world by J.E. and other powerful persons. Dershowitz and Epstein intended Dershowitz's false and defamatory statements set out above to be broadcast around the world and to intimidate and silence Roberts from making further efforts to expose S crimes committed by J.E. and other powerful persons. So it's clear, and I think that all of you, or most of you who are following this case and continue to follow this case, are aware that there were many people who were interested in silencing Virginia and finally succeeded. And I'll be doing a follow-up podcast on new revelations about Virginia's horrific unaliving. So many people wanted to silence Virginia and the other women. And as when we began this podcast and this document, one of the many documents in the Virginia Giuffre versus Alan Dershowitz case, which you can read, these are available. It shows very specifically that Dershowitz also sued her attorneys, settled the lawsuit, but continued to defame Virginia. So I'm going to continue to read. In an attempt to conceal his relationship with J.E., Dershowitz in January asserted that my relationship with him was entirely professional. It's a total bum rap. I was chummy with him. This was a lie. Because Dershowitz and J.E., they were much closer than that. So to conceal Dershowitz's relationship with J.E. and to discredit Virginia, Dershowitz has repeatedly asserted he was only at J.E.'s residence once in Palm Beach, and that was with his family. However, Juan Alessi, a longtime Epstein household employee, has confirmed that Dershowitz visited Epstein pretty often. I would say at least 4 or 5 times a year, and that he would typically stay 2 or 3 days. Similarly, Alfredo Rodriguez, and by the way, Alfredo Rodriguez is the butler who collected the infamous Black Book and who was placed in jail for a harsher sentence than J.E. ever received, and who subsequently had fast-acting cancer and was no longer breathing. Sorry, I have to make some of this stuff okay for this platform. By I think it was December of 2014. Okay, so but Alfredo Rodriguez, who also worked for Epstein, also confirmed, and you can see it there on the screen, that 6 months during the 6 months that he was working for him, that Dershowitz had visited J.E. twice. Okay, so we're going to continue with these screen images that I have. So again, both to conceal his relationship with J.E. and to discredit Roberts, Dershowitz has repeatedly asserted that he was never in J.E.'s residence in the presence of young women. As both Dershowitz and Epstein know, that assertion was false. As Mr. Rodriguez has confirmed, there were also young ladies in the house at the time he, meaning Dershowitz, was there. Mr. Rodriguez also confirmed that Mr. Dershowitz was there when women came to J.E.'s house to give a massage. Mr. Rodriguez also confirmed that Alan Dershowitz was at the house with the local Palm Beach girls. Now, the local Palm Beach girls were teenage girls from the high school. So you know that they were 13, they were 14. That's the age of the Palm Beach girls, primarily. Uh, who he was told to call masseuses. So they were instructed not to call them kids from school, but to call them masseuses, and we see that in the Black Book, right? Although he himself did not know whether or not Dershowitz personally received a massage. So we're going to continue here. So, I mean, the this is the initial lawsuit where it claimed that he participated in as transportation and in abuse. And in public statements, he, meaning Dershowitz, conspicuously omits any reference to the statements by Robert's lawyers after they had investigated his representations and concluded that they were false. Faced with the mounting evidence of his guilt, Dershowitz abandoned his attempt to get Roberts or her lawyer to concede a mistake. Listen to that carefully. Dershowitz abandoned his attempt to get Roberts or her lawyer to concede a mistake, or that Roberts had been wrong, and desperately sought even a suggestion that an error was possible. So he went from pushing really hard. This is one of the most practiced attorneys on the planet. He also works for the state with the letter I. He has written a book for the state with the letter I. He was allegedly introduced to JE by the Rothschild family. I don't think I have to keep saying who Alan Dershowitz is. I think many of you are aware. In December 2015, Miss Roberts' counsel again told Mr. Dershowitz that Virginia is adamant about her current recollection and that neither Miss Roberts nor her counsel believed she was mistaken in identifying Mr. Dershowitz as one of the men to whom J.E. had lent her for, the S thing. In response, Mr. Dershowitz did not claim that Miss Roberts' lawyers had told him that they did not believe her. There's the case. Look for all of the details. You can find it yourself. So, on the morning of December 9th, 2015, Dershowitz basically sent information to David Boies, and it basically saying, "Have we given up on a mutually acceptable statement from VR or you? Let's keep trying. We're not that far apart." When Miss Roberts' lawyer did not immediately respond, Dershowitz wrote later the same day, "We should be aiming as a short, simple statement such as the events at issue occurred approximately 15 years ago when I was a teenager. Although I believed then and continue to believe that AD, he put his initials for himself, was the person with whom I had S. Recent developments raise the possibility that this may be a case of mistaken identification." Mr. Dershowitz went on to write, "It would be acceptable if the statement came from you rather than her, if she prefers." Okay? Okay, let's continue. Um, so he also during this time made allegations and statements about Sarah Ransom, who I just want to let you know or remind you, because some of you know this and some of you are new, that Sarah also asserted that she had been lent out to Dershowitz. And so she said that he was also her attorney, and Dershowitz asserted that he never had S with Miss Ransom, that he never represented Miss Ransom, that he didn't even know her. So basically, I think that it's pretty clear that we see a pattern. Andrew said, "I don't know who Virginia Roberts Giuffre is. I never met her. I never saw her." Well, you know what? Andrew will remember Virginia for the rest of his life. If he didn't remember her before, he's never going to forget her forever. Okay. So all of these men have said, not me, not me, not me. And as you all know, many people just step down from their positions of power. Leslie Wexner, Leon Black, Glenn Dubin, on and on and on and on. Okay. So he went on to state that Miss Ransom's statements about him were fabricated by Miss Roberts' lawyer in retaliation for a bar complaint that Dershowitz had filed against the attorney. However, as Dershowitz knew, it goes on to assert that he did indeed with Miss Ransom, that he did indeed was represented her as her attorney. There are documents to substantiate this, okay? And you can find these documents if you search for them. So Ransom's first contact with any of Robert's lawyers was in November of 2016. And at least as early as October 2016, Ransom had identified Dershowitz in writing to a reporter as someone who had with one or more of the girls provided by J.E., and that J.E. had arranged for Dershowitz to be Ransom's attorney. Lawyer is the word they use. After settling the case against him brought by Edwards and Cassell, Dershowitz told the media he had been vindicated. Remember, this is the Roy Cohn playbook with Donald Trump. They could settle a lawsuit, but they don't tell the media that they settled the lawsuit. No, they go on to allege, claim, assert that they in fact won. So, following the announcement of the settlement of defamation claims against Alan Dershowitz, he has been making public statements suggesting that he prevailed in the lawsuit and that the terms of the settlement. So I think you read that, right? So he went on to say that he won, and that he refuses, meaning Dershowitz, to this day, and even at the time of this writing, which was April 16, 2019, the Dershowitz never wanted to reveal the amount of the settlement that he paid at Edwards and Cassell, that it remained confidential. And so this legal document, which is part of the Giuffre versus Dershowitz lawsuit, and it's just one of many of the documents. Again, you can find it yourself. The case is right on the screen for you to find. It goes on to say that it can only be explained by Dershowitz's knowledge that revealing how much he had paid to avoid a trial of the allegations against him would reveal his guilt. I'm going to read that again. Dershowitz continued to this day to insist that the terms of the settlements of Edwards and Cassell remain confidential, a position that can only be explained by Dershowitz's knowledge that revealing how much he had paid to avoid a trial of the allegations against him would reveal his guilt. So he's never told the media, and I've never heard it, and you probably have never heard it, that Dershowitz settled the lawsuit that he brought against Virginia's initial attorneys, claiming that they too were lying, when basically those attorneys were just representing Virginia. Alan Dershowitz settled that lawsuit for what appears to be a great deal of money. I always hear all of you saying about the settlement between Prince Andrew and Virginia. Why would Andrew settle if he was not guilty? Only guilty people settle. And he settled for an astonishing large amount of money. 3 years ago? I believe it was 3 years ago, 2022. Well, Alan Dershowitz also settled for a very large amount of money that to present day he has never told anyone regarding Virginia. Now, I'm going to go back and add that to the stage, and that's, J.E. staring at his friend Alan Dershowitz. And they're at Harvard. Um, what happened was essentially that Virginia was bullied into not pursuing this any further. It's like pick your battle, right? However, if you read this document and you read through the case, the whole thing, you'll see um, that one of these people is lying, and it's not Virginia. Now, she was basically threatened by lots of these people, and in Dershowitz's case, it is my belief that he was going to keep her in court forever if she continued to insist that something had happened. And since he's an attorney and he's got a lot of money and he's got more than money behind him, by the way, and I'm not going to fill in the blanks. I'm not going to fill in the blanks. I think that many of you should follow what I'm saying. Virginia at some point had to say, okay, well, I won't pursue that. And ultimately, all of this, it's done a lot of things. I mean, Virginia has not gone without having left behind a very incredible accomplishment. And that is that she, for the first time in history, showed the world that this is the kind of thing that happens in the elite world. And she may not have won every battle, but she fought courageously, selflessly. And I want to address another question. So I was watching Sean Atwood's show yesterday that he had when he was interviewing Professor Hamamoto. And I noticed that another question pops up that I want to clarify here once and for all. And so the question was something about why did Virginia accept money from Andrew versus, uh, putting him in jail. So number one, Virginia is a civil person, meaning that we're civilians. We're not law enforcement. She's not law enforcement. She was not law enforcement. Only the authorities could go after anyone in a manner that would be that would have, let's call, teeth, meaning that that person would be put in jail, as Jean-Luc Brunel was put in jail, and as J.E. was put in jail, and as Ghislaine was put in jail. And frankly, what Ghislaine was put in jail for is a minuscule amount of the versus the crimes that she is believed to have committed. Okay, so that the only avenue that Virginia had was to civilly, in a civil lawsuit, take on Andrew. Andrew's the one that said he wanted to go before the, have a trial. It would have been great, but Andrew's the one who settled. Now, a civil lawsuit is only going to have one ending, and that is a monetary settlement, because you cannot put that person behind bars. So I hope that answers once and for all the Prince Andrew question, and I hope that this podcast, which is now 30 minutes in, so I'm going to wrap things up. Please like, please subscribe, please share this, this podcast and my channel in general, because clearly voices like mine are meant to be silenced forever. I too am a survivor of this cabal. I have to call them a cabal because it is what it is. It's the same group of men. My abuser sat a little bit above where J.E. and is one of his, let's say, bosses. Also did a lot of business with Leslie Wexner. My memoir is also on my website, Billionaire's Woman. So I really hope that this has answered your questions about Alan Dershowitz and what happened. And was Virginia lying? No, she always told it like it was. Okay, guys, thanks for taking a listen. Like, subscribe. Till later. Bye.